Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to episode 18 of Takeaways. My name is Patrick Searcy. I'm Director of Marketing for ALN Apartment Data, and I'm joined by the star of the show, Jordan Brooks, who's our Senior Market Analyst. Jordan, how are you?
I'm great, Patrick. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Before we begin today, I just wanted to make sure that we wish all of our viewers a happy new year. There's a lot to look forward to in the coming year for ALN. We can't wait to share more of those details with you. But kicking off this new year, we're talking about the article from ALN's January newsletter called "A Historical Year is in the Books," and what a year it was in many, many ways. But to borrow from your words here, Jordan, to say 2021 was a bounce back year for multifamily would be an understatement. That's very, very true here, looking at all the data. So let's start by giving us the big picture nationally.
Well, I think obviously the headline metric would either be apartment demand or rent growth. But just to kind of start us off on the new supply front, the new construction pipeline has been really active for multifamily going back really since the middle of last decade. But even given that, it's kind of ramped up in the last couple of years. And in 2021, despite all of the difficulties and challenges facing development and construction, about 340,000 new units were delivered across the country, which was more than in any recent year. And that made 2021 the second year in a row where more than 300,000 new units have been delivered. So, despite various challenges, the pipeline continued to be active. But again, the real headlines probably apartment demand. We saw net absorption of more than 620,000 units across the country, just an incredible number. That was actually more than in 2019 and 2020 combined. And it's important to keep in mind also that rent growth didn't really start its recovery until 2021, but apartment demand started ramping back up in the summer of 2020. So the fact that last year doubled 19 and 20 really, is an accomplishment. And then of course, that fueled pretty amazing rent growth. We saw nationally about 14% average effective rent growth gain during the year. That brought the average unit to over $1,500 a month. And if you look back over the last 5 years, the previous sort of high water mark for rent growth had been 8%. So, 14%, obviously, nearly doubling that. So it was just kind of an amazing year, particularly with absorption and rent growth. And part of that rent growth story too was just sort of a total retreat in lease concessions. We saw a 60% reduction in the availability of discounts for new leases. And by the end of the year, less than 10% of conventional properties were offering a discount, and the average discount value was less than 4 weeks off an annual lease. So, just that 620,000 net absorbed units number just sort of influenced everything else across the industry.
I was looking earlier today at the national 24-month effective and market rent charts, and it's incredible to see. It really is eye-popping. You did cover price class in your article. Did any other angles stick out that you didn't cover in the article yourself?
Yeah, of course. There were some angles we didn't really have space to talk much about. The sort of urban suburban divide being one of those, and that's something that we're going to be looking at in an upcoming blog post on the ALN blog, and then also just profiling some markets, sort of on either end of the spectrum for 2021 performance. One of the sort of big takeaways from the year was just the resurgence of the urban core. Not in every market. I mean, there were some exceptions to that, but for the most part, the sort of urban submarkets really displayed a pretty robust recovery in 2021. But we did discuss price class in the article, and just to kind of quickly touch on that, one of the sort of main takeaways from that was just how broad-based the positive results of last year were. Class A had an incredible year. I mean, Class A units represent about 13% of nationwide units, and that subset of properties accounted for about 36% of national net absorption. So Class A had a great year, but all four price classes doubled apartment demand from the previous year, and rent growth was in double digits for classes A through C. Class D didn't hit 10%, but it was around 7%. which is obviously still a huge number and the highest in recent years for that subset. So the positive results extended all the way through the price classes, and that's just, like I said, kind of an encouraging indication of just how broad-based the positive results were.
We towards the beginning of the article, you spent quite a bit of time on population change. Can you unpack that a little bit for us?
Yeah, that's one of the main sort of stories of 2021, and it's important to remember that U.S. population growth has been on a downward trajectory for some time now, and that really has continued, and if anything, strengthened in the last couple of years, to the point where for the most recent year, U.S. population growth was less than 0.5%. So for our industry, it's going to be more and more important to look at net migration numbers. If we're not getting the same number of new people, then we need to know the people that we have, where are they moving, right? And so we did spend quite a bit of time in the newsletter just talking about both population growth and domestic migration in particular. And some states really stood out regionally. The South was the only region that grew in the last year in terms of population, from a net migration perspective. The three states that led, Texas, Florida, Arizona, in net migration. If you look at the multifamily markets that did especially well in 2021, you're talking about Phoenix, Dallas, Fort Worth. Six Florida markets were in the top 10 for rent growth. I mean, it aligns pretty closely. And then California had a net loss of domestic migrants. New York was the same. Illinois. Those were the three top kind of losers of population in terms of migration. And then on a percentage basis, on the positive side, Idaho gained almost 3% in population, and Washington, D.C. lost almost 3%. So, that's something, like I said, where when we're not seeing really robust growth in population, it bears watching pretty closely where people are moving. And like I said, if you look at the top 10 markets for average effective rent growth in 2021, you're talking about 6 markets in Florida: Dallas, Fort Worth, Phoenix, Las Vegas, Myrtle Beach. Myrtle Beach was sort of the most north market of any in the top 10. So that kind of gives you an indication of kind of how these things are correlated.
So now that it's January, and there's a lot going on, the industry is picking up here again for events and whatnot. So what's next for you?
Oh man, putting me on the spot as always. Yeah, it's definitely picking back up. I think in February, I'm going to be speaking at 4 different events. So February 2nd, Wilmington, North Carolina. I'll be doing a market outlook presentation there. That will be virtual. So we'll have registration information on our social media if any viewers of this are operating in that market or that region. Charleston, West Virginia on February 10th. New York Capital Region Apartment Association on February 17th in New York State. And then I think that's actually it for February. So just 3, I guess. I oversold it. So yeah, 3 events coming up in February. All of those, like I said, we'll share details on our social media, and all of those are virtual. So easy to attend, and those will be up soon.
Not getting those frequent flyer miles this for February.
No, it's really putting a dent in those points. That's for sure.
What's coming up on the blog?
So on the blog, we'll be looking at some specific markets, kind of a final pass through of 2021 numbers. So some markets that did well, and then a couple of markets that lagged, and kind of we didn't talk about that here, but we did go through some of that market level data in the newsletter. So viewers of this, be sure to check that out on our website. We'll also be looking at the urban suburban divide. And then I'll be doing a post, a little bit of a deeper dive on price class information, just kind of going through that with a little bit more detail than we had space for in the newsletter.
Well, you can always keep up with that and all of our latest articles on our blog. That's alndata.com/blog. And Jordan mentioned it. It's worth mentioning again that we do post out information about some of the events that we're exhibiting or speaking or just simply going to for conferences and meetings. You can find that on our social media. You can do Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Twitter, it's at ALN APT Data, or just search for ALN Apartment Data on Facebook or LinkedIn. And Jordan, I thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. Look forward to talking with you next month.
Look forward to it too, and we need to get your visitor in a little bit early next time.
Yeah, he just came out. Oh, and
The new star of the show.
that's the new star. That's right. Oh, and I'd be remiss if I didn't do the and right about now. You can click that subscribe, click the notification icon so you don't miss any of our new content that we put out on YouTube. Jordan, thanks again. Appreciate you, and we'll talk soon.
See you next month. Bye, Patrick.